We have this beautiful vision from the prophet Zechariah, and historically it takes place during the exile, and Zechariah the prophet says, this is what's going to happen. It's hard for the people to believe, but he says, when the Messiah comes, this is what's going to happen, this time of great peace. So I have some good news and I have some bad news, as the saying goes. Let me give you the bad news, because we want to get the bad news out of the way. Since I have been alive, the church has lost 75% of its members. I'm 120 years old. Now, I was born in 1960. I'll let you do the math. A month, just a little less than a month, I'll be 60 years old. In that 60 years, we've lost 75% of our church. The largest denomination in the world, ex-Catholics. %70 of Catholics do not believe in the real presence of Jesus. Like Protestants, they believe it's a symbol. 70% do not believe that Jesus is truly present in his body and blood, soul, and divinity. How did this happen? You always need a little bit of time to actually analyze things, but I would venture this guess, and I'm not alone. Almost 200 years ago, Pope Pius X warned of a heresy that was a syncretism of many heresies. He called it modernism. It had many tentacles that went out. And basically, what it meant was that the church would accommodate itself to the spirit of the world. And so it would cover a number of heresies, but it would accommodate itself to the spirit of the world. We want to get along, and so we go along. We see it especially in the last 60 years, but probably more. In many turns in our culture, as our culture would make a turn, to turn away from the spirit of the gospel or the spirit of Jesus Christ, to take a turn away from the Holy Spirit, the church would accommodate and say to people, oh, no, this is too hard for you. You can't bear this. You cannot do this. I know you don't want to do it. You don't want to be chaste. You don't want to be true to the teachings of the church in terms of sexual morality, bringing children into the world, not killing those children, on and on and on. At each turn, and even to this day, it shocks me. Literally, I'm shocked when I read news in the church. I knew it growing up that there were priests and religious that would teach something other than what the church taught. And sometimes very subtly, when I was growing up, my father would point out things. We were in the ride home from church. He said that priest was saying, don't go to confession. He said, don't listen to him. The church has always taught that we should go to confession. They say that we no longer should pay any attention to Mary. We should not put her in a place of prominence in our church, that somehow that got us off the right track. He said, don't listen to that. Matter of fact, he would take us to confession every 2 weeks, and we would say the rosary every night. You want to know where vocations come from? There you go. But so many of them were accommodating themselves to the spirit of the world. Oh, no, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. Do you want to know the clear teaching of the Catholic Church? Look in the Catechism. It's right there. As a pastor, I sign an oath before I can take my place, before I'm installed as the pastor of the sheep, of you good people. I have to sign an oath that I will follow the teachings of the church. Some of you came into the church as adults, and you stood here and you said in an oath, I believe all that the church teaches. In order to be a bishop, oh my goodness, you have to take that oath about 6 or 7 times. That you will teach what the church teaches. It's right there in the Catechism. So when I'm hearing the news, the bishop saying, oh, we're going to do this, or we're thinking about that, or wherever, I open up my Catechism. And I say, he's wrong. It's not me. It's in the Catechism. I shake my head and I say, why? They're accommodating themselves to the spirit of the world. They accommodate themselves to what they think you want. And I suspect that they say, I will give them what they want, and so they'll give me what I want. What do they want? Apparently, it's a big pile of money. Every time you turn around, they're asking. They shut the churches. Never in my life did I ever expect to preach to an empty church. I might have suspected it in my darkest moments. I used to say, if I say this, they're all going to leave. Probably like this morning. They're all going to leave. They'll never come back. But I never suspected I'd preach to an empty church. Now I have. They closed the church. Fine. You want to be protected. And then as it's opening, they say, give me a big pile of money. See what I did for you. How did we lose 75%? It's not because we weren't welcoming. We should be welcoming. We should be truly hospitable. But that wasn't it. It wasn't because we weren't friendly. We were never friendly. They were always here. Honestly, I think history will say, why did they leave? Because they taught them the spirit of the age, of the world, and they could get that anywhere. They could get that from a newspaper. from the internet. What they expected from you was the gospel of Jesus Christ. And they were happy for a time. And then they said, well, why bother? They walked away. There was nothing really special there anyway. If Jesus were truly there, we would have shown up. Thanks be to God, it is not that way with you. You are here. You're the last little bit. I know. Like me, from time to time, you grow weary. You say, this is difficult. From time to time, you want to give it up. You want Jesus to say, no, I wasn't serious about that. You want to hear the accommodation. You want me to preach the spirit of the world. From time to time, you and I were tempted. I understand. But by God and His grace, we are here. And this is the good news. That those who listen to His voice, the little ones, the not so bright, the not so clever, those who have not immersed themselves in the wisdom of the world, welcome. Now hear Jesus' voice to you. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Which means those of you who are carrying the cross, each and every one of us, struggling with the teachings of Jesus Christ, to be true to those teachings that pierce our heart. And when we say yes, fill us with His strength and His grace. You who are still struggling, not perfect by any means. I would be a liar if I stood up here and said, oh, I got all this, don't worry. I open the catechism and say, really? I have to do that? I hear the words of Jesus in the gospel calling to me, and I say, Lord, I can't without you. You who are laboring, carrying His cross. It's like this. It's not my job to tell you to stop carrying your cross. Imagine yourself along the way. Jesus' way of the cross. You encounter Jesus. You're there at His side. And you see Him. The result of torture, exhaustion, abuse, the sweat, the spit, the blood. And your heart breaks. And you want to say to Him, stop. But you can't. It is the Father's will. If you tell Him to stop there, He won't make it there to the hill to be crucified. and you will not have salvation. The spirit of the world says to him, this is enough. Stop. You're overwhelmed. You're exhausted. You cannot take another step. You've fallen countless times, and you've still all that way to go. You'll never make it. They're not worth it. Most of the people you're dying for, God forbid, 75%, will reject you. The world tells us those things all the time. Don't be holy. Don't give up anything. You don't have enough. Take care of yourself. You're exhausted. Rest. Put down your cross. If this child is your problem, get rid of it. If it's an elderly parent, let them go. This is how you do it. What should we say to Jesus when we meet him on the way? Like Simon of Cyrene, I'll help you. Let me bear the weight for a while. It's not far. I told you I like to read some of the mystics, and this is Elizabeth Kindleman, her spiritual diary. The book is called The Flame of Love of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Jesus speaks to her. That's why I love this stuff, right? She was a third order Carmelite. My little Carmelite, remember when you became a widow and your children were growing up? You asked each one to help you for just an hour. What a great help that would have been for you. How sad you were when they excused themselves with every kind of pretext. You did your tasks alone and abandoned. Think of how many children I have, my daughter. How delightful it would be if each one helped me only for 1 hour. Jesus says to us in today's gospel, come to me. As I would put it, get up off your backside and come to me. I'll give you rest. I'll leave you with this. When the churches were closed, you each had a key to one or both churches. Did you come? and carry the cross for an hour so that He could give you rest.